Warm greetings on behalf of Friday Waters, an initiative of the W4W Foundation, a think tank built as Citizens Collective. We welcome you to today's session of Meet a Maestro. Friday Waters is a continuation of signature series Wednesdays for Water. The idea of Friday Waters is to bring water knowledge available in the various alternate forms at one place for developing a better understanding about the water matters in different possible ways. The activities initiated in Friday Waters include Water Talkies, Water Reading Club, Water Thesis Club, Water Arts, and Meet a Maestro. Each of these sessions takes place once a month, depending on availability of the speakers. The Friday Water sessions are designed to be fun-filled and yet be fruitful. Do keep following us at W4W. Do keep following us at www.w4w.in for regular updates. My name is Mansee Bal Bhargava and I'm the host for today and I'm from WforW. Today we have Apoorva Oza as part of Meet a Maestro session to share his insights on from field interventions to policy change, lessons from the Aga Khan Development Network. Before we begin, let me briefly introduce him for our record's sake, though he doesn't need an introduction in the water movement, especially in his work in the rural sectors across India. Apoorva Oza is a global program lead in agriculture and climate change at Aga Khan Foundation. He is also a trustee of several NGOs like Society for Women's Action and Training Initiative Swati and Arid Communities and Technologies Act. He is also founder trustee of many NGOs networks like Prabha, Sajjata Sangh, and WGWLO, which is on land rights for women. He started his career as a deputy manager with Gujarat Dairy Development Corporation and joined AKRSP, the Aga Khan Rural Support Program, as a program coordinator in 1888. And I think I know him from the time I entered my post-graduation when I was working on water sector, though in urban, but looking at people working around water, I came across the work of Aga Khan Rural Support Program as well as Purva sir. He has served as Chief Executive Officer of AKRSP India from 2001 to 2022, and then now the global platform is his field. So I'm going to share his detailed bio in the chat box and just briefly tell about he loves and enjoys what he does and likes helping others achieve their potential as development professionals and make meaningful change to the quality of life of others less fortunate. So thank you, Apoorva sir, for accepting our invite to share your learning and writing experience with us, but at the same time, also joining us in the celebration of 300 sessions at W4W. And we really are grateful that you could take out time to share your thoughts and ideas. I have some questions on your work and thank you for sharing your presentation in advance. But before that, I must heartily welcome you for this session and invite you for your presentation. Thank you so much, Apoorva sir.
Thank you, Mansee. I'll just share my presentation. But before that, let me just share that I think this whole idea of having a whole series and so many series on the water sector is amazing because it's it's such a key sector and it requires and it's such a wide range. And the fact that you've been doing so persistently and consistently, I'm sure, has improved people's awareness about the criticality of this sector. Can you see my slide?
Yes, it is visible. Yeah. Thank you.
So, it's a slightly ambitious undertaking I have here because the work spans over 3 to 4 decades, and I'm trying to cover it in about 30 minutes. So let's see how it goes. What I've tried to do is what are the what we are saying is that the kind of work AKRSP does or a lot of civil society does is like they show here. It's basically, in many ways, it's just a drop in the ocean, right? It is sort of, you can say that it's in a country as vast as India, what does it matter? And yet, as they also say, every drop counts. And therefore, what we'll try to do in this presentation is show that how the kind of efforts we have made, how they can be scaled up, how they can be applied in different contexts. So let me just share what has been done over the last 3-4 decades. So in the AKDN in India, the agencies working on water, there are many agencies in AKDN on health, education, etc. But the two agencies which work on water are largely AKRSPI and the Aga Khan Foundation. And between them, they cover five fairly major states of India. This is the rural areas, largely tribal, very poor areas of Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, and Maharashtra. And then there is also Gujarat has a coast which is sort of saline. So that's another water problem we are talking about. And then you have a very different water problem, which is the problem of, so here you have droughts, then you go to Bihar and UP, and then you have flood prone areas. And that then causes water contamination. The groundwater level is high, but irrigation is relatively low because power availability is very poor, land holdings are small. So you have sort of range of water problems, salinity, rain-fed, drought-prone, and flood-prone. So these are the range of problems which AKDN sort of covers in the work which it does over the last decades. And what has been the approach? So the water has many uses, but we are looking at three core approaches. One is we started off with working on livelihoods, so water for irrigation. Then we had water for drinking water, and I see many people, Nanak there, who's a drinking water person, and then the whole river basin, ecology, rivers, aquifers, etc. And the approach largely has been that go to the community, go to villages. They have problems related to water, either excess or lack of it in most cases. And in that context, you do pilot many ideas. Some of these ideas work, and then the community really likes those ideas and runs with the ideas. So it sort of scales up on its own. But then you find that in the neighboring areas, they have similar problems and they also want you to do more. And as an NGO, you are relatively limited. You can't do everything everywhere. You have limited resources and capacity. So then how do you scale up? And then AKRSP's approach, because water is a sector which the government is the biggest player in our country. So in this sector, then you work with the government. So you try to influence government policies, or you try to get them to allocate more resources to that type of problem, or you partner with the government in and implement programs, and then you also do a lot of capacity building. So these are largely the ways in which you scale up. And this is what we'll be touching upon in this presentation. Now, we here the ambition is very high, and you'll see we've got a range of water challenges and their solutions, and we try and sort of cover all of them in this brief talk. So, one is that the government irrigation department has constructed large number of dams and canals in India across the world. But in India, if you see, the capacity utilization has been relatively low, 40-45%. So all the water which is stored at fairly high cost doesn't reach all the farmers, especially the tail end farms. So how do you address that problem? Because these are poor farmers who need water and they didn't get it, though water is available. Then you have these tribal areas, hilly areas, drought-prone areas where you need to, which with the productivity is low, poverty is high, so you need to conserve water in the soil and you need to conserve water in water bodies. So you need a different approach, what is called a watershed approach. Then you go to Bihar, which is the third set of problem where there is abundant water, but inadequate water. So how do you deal with that? So these are, and how do you solarize that? So these were the irrigation problems. But you can keep on irrigating, but are you improving efficiency? So then there is a program on drip irrigation, and we'll talk about that, how it improves efficiency. From there, from the whole irrigation space, we move to the drinking water space, where you talk about two work done, AKRSP in Bihar, and then in Uttar Pradesh, some outstanding work by the Aga Khan Foundation, which has been done in a very difficult state, and that's there. And then finally, we come to the core part. So behind all of this water are the rivers and water bodies and aquifers. And we talk about a story about one river which has been revived with AKRSP help in Gujarat. So we'll try and cover all of this. It's an ambitious task, but let's try. Let's try. So let's move to the first. So let's talk about this canal irrigation management. So in the late 80s, 90s, AKRSP was had gone to a village called Pingot, and then the farmers said that there is this dam, and Pingot had a command area of 600 hectares. It was irrigating 30 hectares. So the farmers said, listen, we've lost our land to the submergence of this dam, but we've not got a drop of water. So can you do something about it? And so we started talking to the irrigation department, organized the farmers. They started repairing the canals. We got the department to repair the dam or the gates, etc. And then over a period of time, what, as you can see, the water started flowing. Yeah? And that, there's a one pilot, then DSC started another pilot. So they were, so then this is the problem, as we said, was canal irrigation not reaching the farmers, very poor maintenance. So the solution was through this pilot project, and the tribal community is forming a irrigation society. And this became fairly sustainable because this cooperative society could get the water rate recovery. They'd give some to the government, keep some for themselves, use it for maintenance and management. And they were recognized by the irrigation department. So these many pilots happened, and then the state realized that this was an answer to a major problem they had. And therefore, with after a long time, with many government resolutions, etc., finally AKRSP and DSC drafted what is called the Act. So this is it's called the Participatory Irrigation Management Act, which has been passed by the government of Gujarat, I think in 2004, and that therefore led 10 pilot schemes, hardly what 5,000, 10,000 hectares. The whole state is now under this act. So this is a major scaling up which has happened through government policy. And to make it happen, AKRSP, DSC, they trained about hundreds of irrigation staff on how to work with farmers, why to work with farmers. So it changed a lot of, the way the whole irrigation scenario. And, even at a national level, there was this influenced many things. And of course, irrigation itself had a huge impact, and food security, less migration, etc. So this is one story we are talking about, of something which is piloted and then goes up to scale. The second story is I would say it's not an AKRSP story, it's a civil society story, because a lot of watershed work was done only not by AKRSP and in similar areas, high migration, poverty, tribal areas. And there were models created by Ralegaon, Anna Hazare, etc. So this watershed approach was taken up, and using watershed funds, NREGA funds, etc. And now these watersheds, water table increase, irrigation happened, the productivity happened, so migration came down. It's a great story, and in India, a lot of watershed work has happened across many states and countries, and villages. And the policy part was also important because they had a guideline, but it was not community. Community had a lot of input to give. So AKRSP and other NGOs, they were a part of watershed task force. They improved the guidelines. So over a period of time, this whole program made sure that vast parts of rain-fed India were covered through this watershed approach. So these are two classic, relatively, stories of AKRSP in the 90s to the early 2000 years. Let's now move to a newer story, which is the Bihar story. And the Bihar has this groundwater table which is very high, but very costly irrigation because diesel prices go up. And therefore, and power availability is very low, and land holding is very scattered. So what is the solution? So the solution is replacing, and there were already diesel, what we call operators who would, pump through the diesel engine and sell water. So you have to replace the diesel operators through, because it was very expensive, with solar irrigation, but you have to make it viable. Otherwise, it will stop. You don't need subsidy all the time. So you make it an entrepreneurial activity where water is sold and you make money out of that water. And that helps you cover your costs, make a profit, and even meet the loan cost of 60% of the capex, right? So that is the model which has been created. It's worked really well. There are, I think, now more than 200 such schemes in Bihar. Many of them, about 170, 180, are run by women entrepreneurs from the SHG groups. And it's changed things substantially. And now the government of Bihar, and okay, we have to say that this whole idea of doing this, and we'll come to it, was Professor Tushar Shah of IGNI Tata. It's his brainchild. AKRSP sort of operationalizes his brainchild. And now it's the government is now has appointed a group of secretaries to adopt this model throughout Bihar, and that will change diesel irrigation in the country and make it solarized. So this is one village, Chakazi, where this has been done, and how farmers gain because the effective price goes down, the hours of operation are high, everything. It's a good change. What we'll try and to do, because let me try and take you to Bihar. So let me try and show you a film of how this is happening. So let's see. Let me know if you can see the film. Can you hear?
Yes, it is audible. Thank you.
आज से पहले हम लोग पंप सेट से, डीजल पंप सेट से सिंचाई किया करते थे, जो पंप सेट बहुत ही महंगा हुआ करता था। और सबसे बड़ा ये था कि समरसेबल बोरवेल नहीं होने के कारण वो ज़्यादा, जैसे मई जून महीने में उससे पानी नहीं निकल पाता था, और उससे 1 घंटे में 1 कट्टे पड़ते थे, जिसका खर्च 120 रुपया लगता था। उस उपलक्ष्य में हम लोग संस्था के माध्यम से सोलर पंप का एस्टेब्लिश किए हैं, जिसमें क्या है कि इसमें समरसेबल है, और समरसेबल से फ़ायदा ये हुआ कि इसका 120 के बदले हम लोग 90 रुपये घंटे में सिंचाई करते हैं। वहाँ 1 घंटे में 1 कट्ठा पटाते थे, यहाँ 1 घंटे में 2.5 कट्ठा पटाते हैं, जो किसान के लिए बहुत ही फ़ायदे का चीज़ है। और सबसे फ़ायदे ये हैं कि खरीफ के मौसम में जो सुखाड़ के चक्कर में और पंप सेट से पानी नहीं मिलने के चक्कर में जो फसल नहीं हुआ करता था, वो आज सोलर प्लेट लग जाने के बाद सारे किसान अपने नए खेती के लिए जो खरीफ में नहीं लगाते थे, उन फसलों की तरफ मुखातिब हुए हैं। और ये मेरा ये अपना सोच है कि ऐसा अगर गांव में 5, 7, 8 अगर हम लोग बोरवेल एक साथ अगर कर लें, तो एक गांव को पूर्ण रूप से हम लोग सिंचाई पे कब्जा कर सकते हैं। और हिंदुस्तान में जो तेल का जो कमी होने वाला है, इस कमी को दूर करने में हम लोग एक भागीदारी के रूप में काम करेंगे।
गाँव में इससे पहले जो 14-15 जो डीजल पंप था, तो एक डीजल पंप में एवरेज पूरे साल में 1 से 1.25 लाख रुपए का डीजल जल जाया करता था। अगर पूरे गांव में हम सबको अगर एक साथ कर दे तो 12 से 15 लाख रुपया मेरे गांव में सिर्फ डीजल से बच रहा है। साथ में उसमें एक और है कि डीजल इंजन जो होता था, उसमें साल में 8 से 10 हज़ार रुपया का मेंटेनेंस भी लगता था। कभी कुछ खराब हो जाए, कभी कुछ खराब हो जाए, तो उसमें 10,000 के आसपास खर्च हो जाता। साथ ही जो डीजल पंप होती है वो 12 से 15 हज़ार का यहाँ पर चाइनीज वाली डीजल पंप, तो वो आज एक बार 12 से 15 हज़ार लगा के खरीद लेते हैं, फिर अगले 3 साल में वो 1.5 से 2 हज़ार में लोहे वाले के हाथ में बेच के खत्म कर दिया। वो पूंजी भी अगले 3 साल में खत्म हो जाया करता।
Yeah. So I hope you got a glimpse of this film and how Bihar is dealing with this problem and how it is helping that. And I think the government of Bihar, this would apply to UP, to many other states which are similar. Now let's we've done all this, lot of irrigation, etc. But irrigation, flood irrigation, has its own inefficiencies, right? A lot of water is wastage, more water is used, more labor is needed, soil quality gets degraded. The other issue is that you have many farmers towards the end of in winter or summer, there's very little water in their wells. And so it's always a risk for them to even irrigate 2 acres or 1 acre, because if the water runs out, the whole crop fails. So how do you make it more efficient? And the third thing is the government does provide subsidy, but the capital cost is so high that the poor farmers can't beat the remaining 50%. And therefore, only the rich farmers end up taking drip, but the poor farmers avoid it. So this was a problem we saw in Surendragarh district, which is a drought-prone district of Gujarat. So what did we do? So one is that you got a behavioral change, because small farmers thought it's a big rich farmers technology. So how do you motivate them to adopt drip irrigation? And the other solution was, how do you provide low cost loans for small farmers so that they could meet half of the capex and then adopt this. So this sort of we tried this model. It worked relatively well. And we then created a revolving fund out of it. And therefore, that makes it sustainable, because after AKRSP withdraws, the revolving fund is there with the farmer producer organization. So it works well. And it's a huge impact. Drip irrigation has massive impact. Everybody knows 60% more efficient. And fertigation also uses fertilizer use. So with the irrigation, less labor, improved soil, etc. Policy influence, we've been able to scale it up in a sort of a market-based approach through this farmer producer organization. But other states have not taken the model as Gujarat has. So from a policy point of view, I think there is still a lot of work to be done by us. Let's look at this again through another film, which talks about drip irrigation. And this is for cotton farmers. Which cotton is a big water guzzler.
15-16 વર્ષથી જોડાયેલો છું અને ડ્રીપ અમે દોઢ વર્ષથી યુઝ કરીએ છીએ ખેતરમાં. જ્યારે ડીપ અમારા ખેતરમાં નથી ત્યારે એક તો મારું ખેતર થોડુંક ઢાળઢોળવાળું હતું, એટલે પાણી બધે પૂરું મળી શકતું નહોતું. ઉત્પાદનમાં ઘટાડો જોવા મળતો. તે મુશ્કેલી તો શું છે, બૈરાવ જે અમારા ઘરના જે હોય, મારા પત્ની, એને પણ કામમાં લગાડવા પડે, તો એનું ઘર કામમાં પાછું મુશ્કેલી આવે.
The capital cost of a drip technology is almost equivalent to the annual income of most of these farmers. The foundation of this program is the loan which is given to small and marginal farmers. The recovery of that loan leads to a revolving fund which is managed by a collective of farmers to reach out to more and more farmers. So therefore, the revolving fund is a base of sustainability and a base of growth for this program.
જ્યારથી મારા ખેતરમાં ડ્રીપ લગાડી છે, એક તો ઓછા પાણીમાં વધારે ઉત્પાદન મળે છે, અને કામમાં 80% ખર્ચો ખેતીવાડીમાં ઘટે છે, અને કામમાં પણ ઓછું, અને બીજા કામે જઈ શકીએ છીએ. પછી જ્યારેથી ડ્રીપ લગાવી છે તો મારે 86,000 રૂપિયાનો નફો મેં કરેલ છે. બાકીનું જે કડિયા કામ ને ટ્રેક્ટર ચલાવવું એ ઇન્કમ આવે એ તો અલગ છે.
ટપક થતા અમને કામમાં સારો ફાયદો, નીંદવામાં લેવામાં આનો ડાબકો અત્યારે સારો થાય. પહેલાં છે ને આમ ફોલવો પડતો, આ ટપક વગરનો હતો ને, ફોલીને 1 મણ કપા આખા દીના વીણી, અત્યારે 2 મણ વીણી લઈએ.
So institutional sustainability is created by forming two sets of community organizations. One at the village level, which is called the Farmer Interest Group, and because that group is not large enough to negotiate with input suppliers or with markets, because the markets deal with large numbers, therefore they are federated into what is called a Farmer Producers Organization.
પહેલાં તો એ જે ગ્રુપ બન્યા છે ને, એક તો પહેલાં એકાબીજી ખેડૂને ભાઈચારો વધવાનો છે.
So this program has been designed for scaling up because it is seeding an idea and providing tools for the farmers themselves to extend the technology to their fellow farmers, and therefore it's a much more manageable program and a much more sustainable program.
Yeah. So here we see that drip irrigation makes a lot of sense if it is managed well and it doesn't depend too much on only outside agencies or companies, but by farmers themselves. Now we shift from irrigation to the drinking water sector, and this is another problem which Bihar has, is you had hundreds, thousands of hand pumps everywhere. Every household had one hand pump. But in flood-prone North Bihar, all these hand pumps were largely contaminated because in monsoon there would be flood. So everything, fecal, everything would be in that shallow groundwater. So bacterial contamination was 80-90%, large amount of diseases, etc. And there were large schemes which the World Bank did, but they were very poorly managed, so they were not also functioning. So what is the solution here? The solution is first try to get water from a level which is deeper than this shallow aquifer so that it's not as contaminated. Second thing, make it manageable. So 80 to 100 households can manage this. So you do it at a ward level and not at a whole panchayat or a village level, right? And then make sure water quality testing is internalized by the community, because water quality is the main problem in Bihar and many parts of UP. Water availability is there. So this solution was piloted in Bihar by KRSP colleagues. It worked and it sort of started scaling up. There was more demand for it, and it was sustainable because the groups would manage, they would cover water rates, etc. And the government saw this, and there was a the Panchayati Raj department thought it made a lot of sense because the cost was also low. And therefore, they said that it should be a part of their government had a Har Gal Nalka Jal scheme. So they use this approach and a ward level approach. So Bihar is the only one which has scaled up the Jal Jeevan mission at a ward level, not at Panchayat level, because it's a manageable level. And it's really working. So the whole policy has changed. And we are advocating that even in other states which have large villages and have groundwater available. But it's really scaled up. And now this is a scheme which is there throughout the state. So one small pilot, and it influences the whole state. It changes the way the state does drinking water. And this is some photographs, women mobilizing other women for contribution. Then the water testing laboratory, which is a low-cost lab. And then the final scheme, which you can see, where villagers can take their drinking water. And, so this is the thing. Then how do you, and of course, this is the chief minister then visiting the pilot project in one of the villages at a Musahar village, and shown how the scheme is working. And then therefore it turns into policy, and the KRSP staff influencing the Panchayati Raj on scaling it up, right? So this is that whole journey. There is similar journey which is done by AKF in UP, which is that the program is there, the Jal Jeevan Mission, but there are, of course, it's a vast country, different conditions, so many challenges. So there are 4 key challenges which Aga Khan Foundation in Uttar Pradesh and then also in Bihar is trying to address. And they've done pilots, successful pilots, and now they are influencing policy. So one is on source sustainability, which is the key. Many drinking water schemes throughout the country are failing because source sustainability is not being addressed, right? The second is grey water management. That has also not been, really addressed. The third is how do you make sure that the water is safe? And the fourth is, for a country which is amazing payment system and digitized everything on earth, the drinking water program has very little digitization. So how do you digitize the infrastructure monitoring and the payments? And then some very good pilots have been done by AKF. And as we'll see from the table next, how this has now been scaled up throughout. So you look at these interventions. So these are the challenges, and what AKF has done is that it is piloted, let's say, a water safety plan. It has created models of pond rejuvenation for grey water management. It has introduced already a digital payment system for fee collection. It's also done a whole system for tracking infrastructure digitally, right? And then there's a whole study on, hydrological study on source sustainability in 2 districts. Now, all of these pilots, they've addressed the local problems. And then this has now been taken in 5 districts in the state. So the state has said that, oh, these pilots make sense. They're working for us. Why don't we scale it up? And then AKF is helping them to scale up throughout the state. And UP, as you know, is one of the largest states in our country. And in fact, if it were alone, it would be one of the largest countries in the world, right? So to impact UP is like impacting a whole country. And that's what AKF is doing through this pilots. Yeah. Mansee, how are we doing on time?
We are good, sir. Please continue. We are good.
Okay, thank you.
I'm keeping a track.
Yeah, now let me come to my last thing, and one of the things which we are really very proud of. It's a very unusual thing which AKRSP had not done before, which is, see, we used to do this individual village watershed in many of the villages here. many of these villages. But you saw that, it was not having a real great impact, because they were all a part of a river basin and the river was dying. So, and old people told us that, an old lady told me that when I was young, I would go for a bath in the river in summer. And now, the water would be up to my waist. And now, there is no water in summer. Even in winter, there's a trickle of water. So the river is, the river of our childhood is dead. And that is a story of hundreds of rivers throughout the world, right? Throughout the country, throughout the world. And how do you address this major problem? And a river is a sign. It is one of the key sign of a healthy river, shows a healthy hydrology. So a dead river shows a very, very weak and poor and failing hydrology. So therefore, how do you revive that? So what we did was, we picked up each of the rivulets, which you see on this path, and then worked with all the villages in that rivulet. And then we started with the community. We did about 140 check dams, but then got the government. The government did another 500, 600 check dams more. So there was a lot of number of check dams. Stopped water in different places, bori bunds, etc. And then large scale adoption of micro irrigation. So you made water more efficient and you increase the supply, so to say. And for drinking water, we did roof rainwater harvesting structure. So we did a whole integrated sort of water system. And now there is this group. We've withdrawn from this area about 10 years ago. The group is amazingly active. They send me videos every third day on how they've repaired the Boriband and how they're getting this and that. So the leadership is active. And it's a multi-village group. So running multi-village group, as you know, are very difficult, but it's doing very well. There's a very strong women's federation, which is also working. So it is a sustainable model, right? And with very good partnership with the irrigation department of the government of Gujarat. It's had a huge impact. And we got IMI Tata Group to do an impact study of that, right? And it says that the incremental income, just the incremental income of 16 crores was there because of this increased groundwater recharge in the sub-basins, right? And then the water availability was high. The recharge increased from 18% to 43%. Most farmers who had never had irrigation were now getting access to irrigation. So there was equity. And there was also drinking water, which was available because of that. So there was a huge impact of this kind of river revival, which was done. And it's actually become a model for many places. So many people have come and seen and tried to replicate it in other places. Unfortunately, and this is the gap you see in policy level, that the department is of water, department is of drinking water, there is a groundwater. So it's all siloized government departments. A river is a whole. It is surface and ground. It is irrigation and drinking. It's many things. And therefore, replicating or scaling up the river doesn't really come under any ministry. The Ministry of Rivers, they deal with rivers like the Ganges. So nobody has time for these small rivers which we work with. So that is a gap, but this has been a very, very effective program. And it's really, if you go and meet the community there, you'd realize that how close it is to their heart. I'll just tell you a story and then we'll see the film. There was a person in one village, one of the leaders, Joda Bapa. And when we started this movement, we wanted to make sure that everybody joined. So we did what is called in India a Padyatra. So we did a walkthrough right from the furthest village right till the end of the village. So walked over 4 days, 5 days across all these villages, everywhere halting, talking about river, etc. So he said during that Padyatra, he took an oath that till the river is revived, I will not wear footwear. So I will not wear chappals and I will not eat any sweet. And that really motivated people. And he was a rich man. He was not even a farmer. He was a trader. And he didn't need to do this, but he just felt so connected to this idea of reviving his own river on his neighborhood that he did this oath and led everybody. So I think this is why you need a mixture of technology and culture to do these kind of movements, right? We'll see another film on this. Let me just start that movie.
ગુજરાતના જૂનાગઢ જિલ્લામાં અમારું એક નાનકડું ગામ છે. અહીંયાથી મેઘલ નામની એક નદી વહે છે. આખો વિસ્તાર ખરાશનો છે, એટલે મેઘલ નદીના કારણે અમને મીઠું પાણી મળી શકે છે. વર્ષો પહેલાં મેઘલમાં 12 માસ પાણી વહેતું હતું, પણ જેમ જેમ લોકો વધતા ગયા અને એમની જરૂરતો વધતી ગઈ, મેઘલનું પાણી બધાને ઓછું પડતું ગયું. તો લોકોએ જમીનમાંથી પંપ લગાડીને પાણી ખેંચવાનું શરૂ કર્યું, તો પાણીનો સ્તર નીચે જતો ગયો. પછી થોડા વર્ષો સુધી વરસાદ ના આવ્યો. મેઘલ નદી સુકાઈ ગઈ, જમીન પણ સુકાઈ ગઈ, દુષ્કાળ પડ્યો.
પહેલાંની પરિસ્થિતિ એક બેડું પાણી અમારે જો ભરવું હોય ને તો 24 કલાક નળ ઉપર અમારે મૂકવું પડતું.
આ અમારો એરિયો છે, પાણીની હિસાબે ખારું પાણી દરિયા નજીક છે, દરિયાકાંઠો, એટલે પાણી ખારાશ છે, ખારાશ વધતી જાય. અમારે પાણીની બહુ અસર અહીંયા. એ જમીન સારી, ઉત્પાદન સારું થાય, પણ પાણીની તકલીફ હતી.
ઈસવીસન 2002ની અંદર આગા ખાન ટ્રસ્ટ દ્વારા પદયાત્રા શરૂ કરવામાં આવી મેઘલ નદીને જીવંત કરવા માટે. અને એમાં સંકલ્પ કર્યો બધાએ કે આપણે જળક્રાંતિનું કામ કરી ડેમો, તળાવો બનાવી અને પાણીનો સંગ્રહ કરવો.
આ પાણી ચેક ડેમ કે કંઈ બાંધેલ નહોતા ત્યારે આ એરિયાની અંદર લોકો બોર તરફ વળ્યા હતા. બોર કરે 300-400 ફૂટ જાય તો ખારા પાણી આવે, એટલે લાખો રૂપિયા એમાં ખર્ચાઈને વેડફાઈ જતા. એને બદલે આ ચેક ડેમ બાંધ્યા. ચેક ડેમ ઉપર બોરીબંધ બંધાણા. બોરીબંધ કરતાં અમને એટલો બધો વિશેષ ફાયદો થયો કે જે પોતાના દીકરા કરતાં વિશેષ કહીએ તો કહેવાય, એટલું બધું અમને આની વળતર મળી. તો અત્યારે ચોમાસો મગફળી પાકી જાય પાણી પાવાથી, ઘઉં પાકે અને તલ પણ પાકે. પહેલાંની પોઝિશન ને અત્યારની પોઝિશન તો આપણને એક સપના જેવું લાગે.
ખેતીની અંદર ઉત્પાદન વધ્યા તો રોજગારી વધી, શિક્ષણને, આરોગ્યને, એક પાસામાંથી રોડ, રસ્તા, આ બધા ગામડા છે એકદમ સરસ, સમૃદ્ધ અને એકદમ તેજ દેખાય.
આજે સિંચાઈ પદ્ધતિની અંદર ટપક પદ્ધતિ આવી, સ્પ્રિંકલર ફુવારા પદ્ધતિ આવી, અને આ પદ્ધતિઓ જે છે એ પદ્ધતિઓનો ઉપયોગ કરી અને એવા પાકોનું આપણે વાવેતર કરીએ કે જેથી એ પાક ઓછા પાણીની અંદર પાકી શકે.
પાણીને આપણે બચાવશું તો પાણી જરૂર આપણને બચાવશે.
Yeah, so let me come to the last two slides. So one is, what are the lessons we have learned in this journey? First is that water is not a problem by isolation. So water is very, very intrinsically linked to agriculture and soil, and is also linked to energy. So you need to work all of this together. You saw examples of solar energy, you work watershed, all of this works together. And therefore convergence will bring sustainable solutions. And of course, community participation is the key. And the second thing is, for too long, the country is only focusing on the supply side. So more water harvesting, more dams, everything. But increasingly, reducing the demand for water. Agriculture is the biggest guzzler of water. How do you reduce water demand in agriculture? One is efficiency, but also regenerative agriculture. You increase soil moisture, so you don't need as much water. You need less waterings. So you need to reduce the demand and you need to increase the supply. Then you get a water balance. You do water budgeting in every village, in every household. That's where then there is a sustainable solution. So with that, I'll close my presentation, Mansee, and I'll stop sharing. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. And I think I do not need to do a full summarization, but I would still like to take a line when this woman was saying, if we save water, water will save us. But apart from that, I think the lessons learned are very well laid out in brief in your presentation, especially when you talk about, working on water. We have to also work on soil, as you were just mentioning. But at the same time, the way you showed the different landscapes of across the country where AKRSP and AKFI has worked, that also gives me a lot of insights to look at how hilly areas, mainland, dry land, and coastal land have different water problems. have different watershed approach, but there are certain things which comes common across these landscape is people's resilience and adaptive capacity if they are hand-holded well with technology and of course the traditional culture, which also you mentioned. And then you do talk about the solar irrigation vis-a-vis the diesel pump. And I think another important point which I would like to pick up from your presentation is the whole issue that you raised, but at the same time you showed how the collaboration can happen. That as an NGO, and it was in your cover page slide showing as a metaphor, that as an NGO, one can do a pilot project and even upscale to certain extent, but then to really take it at a large scale, which you showed in Bihar's ward level presentation or intervention, I must say, you really require multi-level stakeholders, and their NGOs also have a limitation to upscale unless and until the many stakeholders come together, especially the governments, because water being the state subject. So I think these are very important insights which we can take up from your presentation. There are many more, and I think you also weaved very beautifully how Bihar managed to really make use to its maximum potential, the Jal Jeevan Mission. And also, especially when you also talk about the UP case and you are talking about digitization of water systems, these are extremely important interventions into the already existing system where source sustainability and gray water management and smart irrigation management are extremely useful. But the last example was really what India needs at this point in time. You all very much aware the rivers and lakes and ponds are in bad shape, and it is not enough if we really focus on one big mighty river and we forget the small tributaries and streams. And Meghal River Basin Rejuvenation comes as a classic case where people can come together, and especially if they are well handholded and guided, and they can also manage it later on if there is a good financial or institutional mechanism put in place. I think which is where AKRSP and IMI Tata-like organizations have mastered their contribution in the water and rural sector. So, I mean, I just tried to brief it up and try to make sure that I understood you well, because honestly speaking, first of all, this is my master class to understand our water experts from the country. And so an important question for you, which is the first one related to this NGOs upscaling projects and going with other partners together and with the states. For the new NGOs, what will be your do's and do not lessons for them to really take up these kind of initiatives?
So I think first is, engage very deeply with the community, because the community has a problem, but community also has ideas about the solution.
Yes.
It's not, because see, they are facing the problem day in, day out. So, human mind will try and address the problem. So, and then, so build on the solution they have tried out, and then take it at use your knowledge, use your technology, and then try and scale it up. So let's say drip irrigation is something new to the community, right?
Yes.
So you introduce it slowly and pilot it, let them, and be very open. They find plus point and minus point. Be objective. Don't try to ram down your approach. Do that and do a pilot. Do it well. Understand it well. Where it works, where it doesn't work. Be very what we call learning in that pilot. But once it works, then there will be that NGO will get such a huge demand from the community, because water is such a key issue, whether for drinking or for irrigation, that then once you do a good pilot, then you don't have to worry. The community will come to you and say, we'd like to do this here, do that here. And then you can, scale it up, etc. And Gujarat, if you're working, there are many good networks from which you can learn. There is Prava, which is the drinking water network. There is a network on water. The Sajjata Sangh works on agriculture. So there are enough networks from whom you can then join and learn different parts of water. So that is there. All India level also, there are good organizations which any NGO can learn from.
Yeah. You mentioned an interesting footprint of AKRSP and AKFI work in 5 states. I'm just curious to understand from you, because these are different landscapes, as I was mentioning, hilly areas to mainland, to dry land, to coastal land. from your vast experience, the people, the culture, the cropping patterns are all different. I mean, I'm curious about how people look at watershed management or water conservation in different landscape. What are the similarities or what are the differences? I know it's a very big question, but I'm sure we can just draw some references for masterclass for students, that it's, even though it is one India, there is no panacea, in short, you know.
No, that's true. No, so let's take, for example, a drought-prone Surendnagar of Gujarat to a flood-prone Bihar. You can't find more contrasting scenarios.
Yes.
And so, but so when we went to Bihar, we were thinking that nobody will talk about a water problem because these guys have like wow, so much water,
everywhere.
water everywhere. But then you found out that they had, for example, a huge water access problem because of power, lack of power. So summer they were facing the same kind of problem we saw facing in Gujarat. The second thing is the nature of the problem was slightly, there was a water problem, but the water quality was so poor that there was huge amount of diarrheal disease and a lot of death also. And so they came up with that kind of problem. Actually, they didn't link it up. They just said that somehow this water doesn't seem safe. We don't know what is, because water testing and all is very, it's the most complicated technology for a villager. But they said there is a problem. So Bihar came up with very different types of water problems compared to, let us say, Gujarat did with a drought from Gujarat. But water was very central. So therefore, they need to understand how water they can manage that and make it be effective about it. That is very common. And the worship of water is a part of the culture everywhere. So Gujarat, you had this, you river basin. They worship the river basin, like they said. Bihar has a whole puja every Diwali, which is the Chhat Puja. And the Chhat Puja, all they do is all the water ponds and all the water bodies traditionally were cleaned up. And so the whole puja was going to the pond and actually ending up cleaning up the whole system. So tradition everywhere, all over the world, is around water. All the great civilizations were formed around rivers. So you have to build on that tradition and make it work in modern times. I think that is the lesson we've learned, that you have to build on what they have and then make it different. The context, you make it applied differently.
You mentioned a very interesting point about the village level institutionalizing the water management, because then it can be more sustainable. They can take it further. So hand holding in the beginning, and then capacitating them also to run the show and then take it further from there. I'm just curious to understand from, let's say, the Meghal river revival, because that's you said it's a cluster of villages where the institution is formed. You also mentioned about rotational funding mechanism and all. So is there anything that, again, I'm asking these questions because of your vast experience, and we have very new young NGO also who are taking up these kind of activities. Some things which they should really work around, because I think the sustainability of the projects will eventually lie on the institutional building and the funding model, So do's and don'ts for the younger generation.
Yeah, so like I said, design, Tushar keeps on telling you, and we learned a lot
yes, we learned
from
a
him.
lot from him, yes.
So he says that get the design right.
Yes.
So be thoughtful about the design of the community institution. Huh? If
Hmm.
you get that right, then so the design of a village organization should be such that it addresses their core issues.
Hmm.
It allows local leadership to come up,
Hmm.
and it keeps them focused on the core problem.
Hmm.
So it doesn't distract them with too many procedures and laws and this and that. Keep it simple. So then they focus. They have limited time. They are farmers. They're running a livelihood of their own, and they are doing this in addition. So make sure that it is simple to run. So if you design it well, so the River Bagel group was designed very simply. It was all voluntary. From the beginning, nobody was paid any money for traveling to any meeting. Says if you care about the river, you pay your own cost, right? They were taken for exposure visit to this amazing work done by Rajinder Singh in Rajasthan. So we took them for an exposure. We took them in MP also. So then they had a vision that if these guys can do it, we can do it.
They can do
and then it works. So if it is their vision, so the trick is they are not part of your program. You are part of their vision.
Yes.
Then it works. Otherwise, it's your project.
I think you
Project
nailed it.
khatam, work
You
khatam.
nailed it. And I think an important engagement can be these good case studies visits. So this really helps and motivates them to really engage. And also you also mentioned an important component of water rejuvenation projects is doing padyatras, walking and talking about water
Yes.
with the people. It's an extremely crucial component. So I stop my questions here because I can keep on talking to you, but we have some wonderful questions in the chat box. So maybe we invite Nanak sir first, and then we can take things from there. Nanak sir, over to you. Please unmute yourself and speak.
Thank
We
you very
love
much.
conversations in this platform.
Excellent presentation by Apoorva ji. And actually, I have seen the work of AKRSP in Bihar. And in Bihar, water quality is a big problem. And he also narrated the same. But you see, the poor people so sensitized that they were paying for getting the water quality analysis. I was really shocked to see that how the poor people can come forward and go for testing. And the same laboratory we supported to make it more people
Systematic.
oriented. Yeah, systematic. And it was wonderful. It was sustained very, very well. And the learnings came from this particular water safety planning aspect. And it was rolled out as a bigger program of the government of Bihar and Har Ghar Jal. And then the Jal Jeevan mission came up. But I think hats off to a KRSP team there, very, very minutely manage all the structure, water, and all the development program. Hats off to you. And I think many more lessons to be learned from you and the colleagues who work at the KRSP. Really hats off to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Nanak sir. And he's also a very good student to our series. So thanks for joining again today. So I'll reach out to Ajit sir. He has a question here. And also, Kit has left, but he has a question. I will request Apoorva sir to take his question and respond. But by the time you are reading it, Ajit sir, you may also pose your question personally. Ajit sir, would you like to pose your question? Yeah.
Yeah, okay, no problem, no problem. I'm only feeling that there are a lot of positions in which it goes beyond the communities to handle. At those times, how does Government of India take up the decision, or the state notifies Government of India for a request for emergency conditions, and some defense forces come in and they start helping out in the flood abatement procedures and other things. How does this mechanism happen, or does it happen in times?
So one of the things which has happened is the NDMA is now reasonably active. The National what you call Disaster Management Agency, they have trained officers. In fact, I don't know whether you know, but a lot of ex-servicemen are now part of NDMA on their forces because they are very well trained on doing emergency response. They have a lot of disciplinary systems. So that is there. I think Bihar, and that's a separate body of work. Why Bihar has not been able to manage its floods very well is also a story of embankments and how over embankments have also cost Bihar, because see, water it find its own it find its own route, and so if you over dam the water, then it breaks through somewhere else. So how do you manage that is a big challenge. I mean, it's not an easy thing. But I agree with you that there needs to be a very fast provision of disaster response, because what they say now is that the 90% of the climate problems are water problems. So 90% of the climate crisis is a water crisis. In fact, so you need this kind of emergency response system. I think some states are slightly far ahead, but I think Bihar, UP, other states, I think they really need to, set up a system in coordination with GOI to have emergency response which works very well, because otherwise the damage because of floods is very, very high. I agree with you that's there. I think some states have done, but overall much needs to be done.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Ajit sir. I'm going to ask last few questions, and this conversation cannot be complete without talking about the role of women in this whole watershed management program. And I know AKRSP has invested a lot in women capital, I must say in that way. Your experience of working in these different landscapes and how women have come forward, or what were the challenges they faced, how did they overcome those challenges to form their own, Jal Saheli group or SHOs or women group or women water group? There are different names to different places. But what is your experience of taking women on board in this kind of initiatives?
Oh, I think it's absolutely critical, and it's something you need to do upfront and in the beginning. Sometimes earlier AKRSP days, we used to, for irrigation, we used to talk only to the men. We've realized that that doesn't make sense. Women are equally involved. And drinking water, of course, there is no question about it. I think when you go to the village and depending upon the sociology of the village, but if you engage with men and women equally in the beginning, and then you give space and voice to the women, then they take up leadership position, they volunteer their time. And Nanak will agree that many of the water committees of WASMO, which were formed in Gujarat, a lot of them were women led, and they were they're still there, they're still very active. And that's why in Bihar, this solarization program we have done is in partnership with Jivika. Jivika is the what is called the NRLM agency of Bihar. So it is only women SHGs. So all the new solar entrepreneurs we are promoting throughout Bihar are going to be women entrepreneurs. And they are doing a great job, in fact, so far. People were skeptical, but they are doing great job. They are all making profit. So I think if you give them that confidence and that voice, then I think they are key. And second thing is because they are what we call very careful, therefore, and less political. So their institutions last longer. Men end up quarreling quite often because of politics, etc., and ego. Women end up managing common resources much better.
Fully agree. Fully agree. In WASMO, we have seen that water is very near to women, and they are apolitical about this initiative. So once sensitized, they took up the lead and they transformed all the paradigm shift in Gujarat. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think this is also an observation we have had as I'm running this Water Resources Council with more women professionals. And when I hear them, they also echo the same aspect of it. So that brings me to a very simple last question, and it is about the policy gap, where you did mention about the policy gap because of the fragmentation of departments, which is actually genesis coming from the fragmentation of disciplines. And whereas river is as a whole, and unless and until the whole country is looking at beyond Ganga and every river as a whole, because we have Ganga as one project, but the rest of the rivers are still missing that project. And in that run for one big project, the small tributaries and lakes and ponds get compromised somewhere. I mean, we look at Gujarat as well, and then we look at the amount of money poured in for one river and also the part of river Sabarmati vis-a-vis what is invested in other parts of Sabarmati. I mean, where do you see that there can be, what are the small ways where you can really guide us, or not you as in, but as AKRSP and Aga Khan Foundation and people all around, even Tushar Sasar and all, where we can look at policy convergence, where we can really talk about these tributaries and small ponds and lake developments, because lake conservation, sorry, because that will automatically revive the rivers. I mean, if that can be looked at through, because I personally find that there is much less investment and intervention than done at smaller water bodies. How can we basically, I'm saying, democratizing water investments and budgets. Do we see any hope for this in future? Because the the water crisis is rising. We have to go back to the people and empower them to manage water at small scales, which is where AKRSP has mastered. So how can we interweave that in the policy? Let people handle more.
So a couple of thoughts. So one is a thought for you and your one organization is one of the things, because I know of many experiments on river revival in Gujarat alone.
Yes.
So AKRSP has done this revival. We have done some work in Dangs.
Yes.
Ambuja Foundation has done. A few other organizations have done. I think a lot of people have done small efforts everywhere. Even those we don't have a collection. Even the Gujarat ones, which we know, we've not sort of got together and shared notes how this works, how that works, etc.
Yes.
So one is to do sort of a collection of best practices in Gujarat itself by all the civil society players and invite senior government people to join that, ex-government or senior. I know many very good, and we can do it in collaboration with Gujarat, what do you call, Water Forum, which is there. We are a part of that. I think Sachin is a part of that. So we can do it in collaboration, but at least get all the best practices together. That is one part. And the second thing is a sort of academic, and we can ask Ivni Tata and Alka and Tushar to do, is make a list, do a study of the status of small rivers and rivulets in Gujarat.
Yeah.
What is the status? How many are healthy? How many are partially healthy? Because river health is very key. So you have, and there are standard parameters of assessing river health, both quality and quantity. So you do a judgment and say that these are the rivers which are healthy. We can ask even DSC Foundation or somebody, they've done this water report, which is very good. So you can do that. And then based on that, then sit down with the government and, with the NGOs and see how we can do that. So I think I'll stop here. I think most people, I think we are way beyond time, so I'll stop. But I think there are solutions there. So let's work on that.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot, Apoorva sir, for this enlightening session. And also, I wish to request all the participants also in YouTube. Thank you so much for your patience and listening to us for not this session alone, but so many sessions across last 3.5 years. Do join us in the coming weeks because we are also coming up with equally interesting sessions. For example, next Friday, Waters is on Thesis Club, and we are talking about Neha Mungekar, who is doing her thesis at Erasmus University, Rotterdam. And she's going to talk about repairing urban water governance through informality, very much what we were talking at the last conversation here. This is on 11th of October at 5 p.m. IST. Next Wednesdays for water session is on 9th October, and it is continuing with the education series that is co-hosted with Terry School of Advanced Studies. And we talk about feasibility and challenges in running water-based program. As you know, many water-based programs are yet to take off, but many are also closing down in the absence of finding enough students. So this is also a critical part when we talk about these kind of documentations, as Apoorva sir was talking about. It is extremely useful that we understand that one thing is managing the resource itself, but the other thing is also managing the knowledge of resource management, which is only possible when there are more and more water education happening in the country. With these lines, I also conclude the session today and also invite you to join our 300 series celebration. Thank you so much, all of you. And thank you so much, Apoorva sir, for your time and consideration to join us in this celebration. Thanks a lot. Please take care.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.